And welcome! We continue with this parade of celebrities here at Star Wars 2022. And the next on the list, we managed to catch him. He's a very busy man. And, well, we just took, it's going to be a shorter one. Beware, be prepared. And we have with me our friend Andreas Grabner, Andy, our amigo, very close amigo of Perfects for a
Mhm.
long time. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I don't consider myself a celebrity, though. I think
Oh, come
that's
on.
no. I'm not on Instagram, and I'm not doing these things. Nah. But I'm happy to be here.
One of the first things that I remember when I met you was all the talks that you had before with your hat with the feather. And were you wearing lederhosen?
Lederhosen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was at a conference in Vegas, at our Dynatrace conference, and it was not just me. It was also Bernd, our founder,
Oh,
Anita. She was back then
Drindle.
leading the DevOps team. She was in a Dirndl,
Uh
and
huh.
with the three of us, we were on stage with the traditional Austrian clothes. Yeah.
Okay, if that's not world famous, I don't know what it is.
I
That's
was,
that's a very first. I think
but
you
the
were.
real good story about this, it was a keynote, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, where we were all jet lagged, at 2 o'clock in the morning, Bernd actually had the idea: if we get on stage with the Austrian clothes, we also want to do a dance. And so at 2 o'clock in the morning, we were in his room, and we were watching YouTube videos of the Schuhplattler, as it's called, and it was it was really fun. Yeah.
That's, I mean, that brings the fame on to you. You cannot deny it, man.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. If I remember the picture that I saw, you were holding the Dynatrace UFO.
The UFO, yeah, the UFO, yeah, exactly,
That's
yeah.
a great. Do you still do that?
We still have the UFO. So for people that may not know it, the UFO was a device that we internally developed in Dynatrace. It's a piece of hardware, and it has 36 LEDs in two rows, so 18 by 18, and you could control it through REST API. And the initial point was one of our architects, he was really frustrated that our builds are constantly breaking, and developers leave the office in the evening, and the build is currently broken. So he basically connected the UFO, the LEDs, with our build pipelines. So the idea was when it was rotating, the build was going on, and if the build was broken, it flashed red. And we
Cool.
strategically placed the first UFO. Now we have many. We placed the first UFO next to the coffee machine, which was also next to the office where people were leaving. So the idea was if you are checking in code and before you leave, you want to make sure you're not leaving and the UFO is red because it was
Cool.
maybe you that broke the build. Yeah.
Speaking of observability, that was very
Yeah.
watchable.
Yeah.
We just went dived into it, and I didn't give you a chance for the world famous and everything. For the few ones that may not know you, who are you, and what do you do? What is up about you?
Yeah. So my name is Andreas Grabner, but please call me Andy. I've been in software quality since 2001 is when I started with a company back then called Segway Software. We did performance testing and functional testing. So Sil Performer was actually the first product I worked on. I was actually a performance tester testing Sil Performer itself as a testing tool,
Dog
which,
fooding.
which was fun. Yeah. And I did a lot of trainings, so I really enjoyed educating people on how to use the product, but really more in general what load testing is all about. Did this for 8 years, and then I joined Dynatrace, the company I work for right now. I've been there for almost 15 years now. We are in the observability space. We're a software intelligence company collecting all of the observability data from logs, traces, metrics, events, all the way to the end users. And there I'm also in an advocacy role.
Hmm.
So I really try to educate people on not just how we as Dynatrace help, but in general what the observability space can bring to DevOps engineers, site reliability engineers, automation engineers. Yeah, and the latest, this is what I wear. I'm not sure if you see it on my shirt, Captain.
Captain, the
Yeah,
new groove that our amigo is at, right?
exactly. So Captain is an open source project that we initially started internally at Dynatrace, and then we donated it to the CNCF, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. We try to change the way we think about software delivery and operating software. We're putting observability into the center and then drive automation so that in the end, what we want to achieve is the desired state of your system should always be that it's available, it's performing well, and it's functionally correct, and there's no security problems. So you can define that desired state using observability data, and you define it through SLO, service level objectives. And then the idea of a captain is captain steers your ship basically through the harbors or through the seas, but always making sure that your system is always in the green state. So we're driving automation, but centering it around the concept of looking at how healthy your system is. And if your system is not healthy after a deployment, after a test, or in production, we're triggering the right tools to bring the system back to a healthy state. So it's like a constant automation that keeps your system green.
It's very interesting and even counterintuitive to think that software nowadays is being created without observability. I think that was a big headache in the old days with performance testing.
Yeah.
That was what performance testing was kind of wrongfully used for, like mostly trying to observe and know what is the deal with our system, since they were black boxes that we were just like trying to knock on them and see if there was alive or something happening.
Mhm.
And what you were saying, like this movement that you're starting should be the de facto that every software comes with observability inside of it. I,
Exactly. Yeah.
I I generally do this joke of an airplane with all the controls and indicator and dashboards and pun intended that you need to fly an airplane.
Mhm.
And if the airline got greedy enough and said like, we're gonna throw that out so that we can put more passengers, would you fly on it?
That's a
Oh,
good question. Yeah, the question is that the trust, right? I mean, do you trust the whole thing? Then, oh, yes or no? Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I definitely wouldn't get into that plane. I would be very uneasy not to know how high you're flying, just judging like the air, the speed, maybe this or that. No, we need to know better and be safe in our airplane systems that we are flying all the time,
Yeah.
right?
But then I'm countering you. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that the data is not there and it's not analyzed by some automation. I think about the self-driving cars, right? Just because you don't see all of the details anymore doesn't mean that data is not there, but it maybe just been analyzed and used to automate things that normally a pilot would have done by observing a metric and then doing something. And now the automation, like for instance, Captain is looking at the data, but the data has to be there. And I think that's the point that you want to make, right?
Yeah,
Observability.
no, no. I
Yeah,
mean, I don't want to be, and that's another good point because you shouldn't be overblown by observability, have too much. We have the pilot for that. The
Mhm.
pilot could be like Captain looking at all that, driving the plane, making sure it's at the right altitude.
Yeah,
And we as passengers, we are not bothered, but we are sure, safe, and feeling well that we're in an airplane that knows where it's going or
yeah,
how high. And just don't build systems without those controls or measurements, dashboards, pilots
yeah,
having captain, pilot captain could be
yeah, 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 maybe, yeah, yeah,
similar,
yeah, yeah.
no pun intended, but
Yeah, yeah.
it came out
But
that
I
way.
just want to clarify one thing. Captain itself does not do observability, but we are pulling data from observability
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
platforms, right? We're pulling it from Prometheus, OpenTelemetry, from your Dynatrace, your Datadog, your New Relic. What I really like about the observability space, and I'm sure you like it as well, is that we have OpenTelemetry as a
Yeah.
great project that is really kind of putting observability into the hands of developers because they know their code, they write their code. They should also know what should be observable, right?
Hmm.
And so, and how to observe it. And I think that's great. But we also have to be a little bit careful with the whole shift left movement, that we're not just putting everything on the shoulders of developers. That's why I believe we need to build frameworks and automation to make it easier to actually build these things in. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then that's
Yeah, poor
yeah.
guys, they are already overwhelmed trying to release the features that they are supposed to. And on top of that, they have to keep up with quality, with performance,
Mm,
with automation, with observability.
mm,
We need to make it as pun intended, pipelined as possible so that
yeah.
they just create their art, their code, and push it there.
Yeah.
I love the distinction that you do because Captain is the pilot using whatever the dashboards are throwing.
Mm,
What is the information of all the instrumentation that we have in the airplane or in
yeah.
the boat?
Yeah.
Keeping like the captain analogy. Is it like sea and captain, all those stuffs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
actually, yeah, you're right.
So I mean, let's switch from planes to cruise ships. That's
Yeah.
that may be
Exactly. Yeah.
more accurate.
Yeah.
Cruise ships also have all sorts of sensors, all sorts of metrics that the captain is looking at and turning around depending on what is the read that they are doing. The
Hmm.
captain is not doing the readings, are all those sensors, all that instrumentation and
Mm,
telemetry. And I think the same. We don't want a Titanic situation without enough
yeah.
information, telemetry, and
That's true.
those type of good decisions, right?
Yeah.
And amigo, I know that you have been all over the place as well. And how has been 2022 for you in terms of events? Where have people seen you? And because I forgot to mention, my amigo started from Vienna, Austria. You're
Linz
still in very Vienna or
and Linz in
Linz?
Linz. Yeah,
Okay.
small city, but yeah.
So Austria, I got that right.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
But you have been jumping a lot. On what places has people heard of you or seen you this year?
This year, I think it started out in Vegas. We did our conference in Vegas, even though it was we just recorded there. It was actually one of my best moments this year because I had a chance to meet Kelsey Hightower,
Oh,
Mr. Kubernetes. I did a session with him, a keynote session, and
oh
yeah,
wow,
he was gracious enough to spend a day and a half with me in Vegas, walking around, giving me feedback, giving me advice. And I want to say, whoever has a chance to say hi to him, or it is an amazing character. Yeah. So
wow.
that was really great. Yeah. So that was Vegas, and then I did a couple of DevOps days, Raleigh, North Carolina. I did one in Amsterdam. I did one in Boston just recently. We also did an event in Singapore and some other countries. It's been a lot this year. It's still a little strange. Some of these events, and thank you so much for all of the organizers. It's not easy to get back after
Yeah.
COVID. It's frustrating if you had a show that was huge before COVID and now you're struggling to kind of build up the momentum again because some people in different parts of the world are yet not comfortable to go back to big venues, especially if they're now working fully from home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting out of your PJs is probably tough.
I
But
mean, you're welcome him in PJs. We don't
you're
care.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. Yeah, yeah. No, but overall, I think I'm really wondering if we're really getting back to full scale events like we had them before, or if the hybrid model will stay with us. If the hybrid model will stay with us, I think this will also show us how we deal with hybrid conferences. Yeah, I think there's still a room for improvement. But overall, I'm really happy to see people face to face again because that's just the magic
it
that happens.
it's
Right?
a great mix, and I think it's different opinions. People, we are all different. We have some preferences. We were talking with Joe Colantonio earlier, and he was like, "I prefer virtual. I prefer
Mhm.
gives you more reach distance wise,"
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
we are literally feeling that the distance. Like, when you're telling me how much have you been bouncing,
yeah. Mhm.
I can relate, and but on the other hand, it's like I'm seeing you, I'm shaking your hand,
Yeah,
we are like hugging and
yeah,
talking, and the interactions are kind of different.
yeah, different. Yeah.
I don't know, and that's a very good point that you do. Are they hybrid to stay or going back to all in people in person?
So yeah, I think they're staying. I think delivering content, if it's just about the content, it's more efficient to do it virtually, right? Because honestly, flying around and spending time, I mean, as much as we obviously like to support the local teams at the local hotels and everything, it's an investment that you need to make.
Yeah.
But what you cannot reproduce is exactly what you just said. The networking is just super hard in virtual worlds if you are trying to meet new people you've never met before. Here last night at the cocktail reception, right? You introduced me to new people I've never seen, met before, and that is inspiring new conversations, new ideas. And this is something that is really hard to replicate in the virtual world. And I think that we're just human beings, right? Human beings need the interaction. We need, to just,
Most
to
of
feel the
us.
energy. Most of us, yeah, most of us, the humans. I know some.
I knew a few hermits that are very
Yeah.
happy, and
Okay.
not
Yeah.
despectively hermit. I'm count myself a little bit like
Yeah.
one of those, but yeah, it's a great mix. There are some things, right? In the morning we were doing like the walkthrough and like, look at this food, look at
Yeah.
this experience, it smelled awesome, or
Yeah.
just it's intoxicating at times.
Yeah.
And it's a big balance because, as you say, the venues, the people that put these places together, the
Yeah.
organizers that
Yeah.
you we're on Disneyland. So
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
another one. You walk out
Yeah.
here across 2 blocks and you're getting near to the parks.
Yeah.
Mixing that like as an attendee, is like, okay, I'm going to, I don't know, Vegas in perform.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, Vegas, that's
Yeah,
another
of
one
course,
where,
it's benefit, right? I mean,
except for perform, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So
yeah. Except the stuff you learn about Dynatrace that
exactly.
hopefully gets back
Take
to you.
it, repeat
Exactly.
it, and blast it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And speaking of, we
Yeah.
have some news on that front, right? Is perform happening again?
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
going on?
it's the week of February 14, 15, whatever, the third week of February, second, third week. Just as in the last year, training days and then the main conference.
Okay.
Um, I think there's going to be more information coming up now because we just finished yesterday our Dynatrace Innovate series. So we had a 1 day local version in Singapore, in Sao Paulo, and in London. So yesterday
Cool.
was London. That was the last of the three, and now it's full steam perform. Exactly, that's happening.
Stay tuned. News
Stay
will
tuned.
come anytime now,
Yeah,
and I look forward to. It's
yeah.
Valentine's Day, pretty much, right?
I think it's in the week of Valentine's Day, to be honest with you, and that's also why I'm happy that
Hesitant.
Gabi can come with me this time, my wife.
Uh-huh.
So I guess otherwise she would not be happy.
You cannot go. I'll take
Yeah.
you. Okay, then we can go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I relate a little bit to that.
Yeah.
But what news do you think are gonna be coming out of Perform?
Well, I think as I just mentioned earlier, yesterday we made a big announcement about Grail.
Mm-hmm.
So our graph-based AI-optimized limitless observability data lakehouse. I know there's a lot of words that I just put together, but yesterday we announced that we as Dynatrace, we are like other vendors too, right? We see the problem of we have data silos.
Hmm.
We put logs in a different place, then metrics, then traces, then end user data, then events. Companies, our customers have business data somewhere in their own data lake. And then we have data silos and the data is not well connected to each other. And if you want to do cross correlation, you need to correlate based on certain stuff, right? Timestamps, for instance, or stuff that you're pulling out. We built Grail to solve this problem. So all the data in one place, all the data in context. That means all the data connected through
Mm-hmm.
our Smartscape, through our topology model. And the first use case that we are bringing Grail to the market with is log analytics. And there will be more on top of that that I'm pretty sure we'll hear more about at Perform.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
Stay ready. And that's a great one when you mentioned open telemetry, like trying to standardize data to
exactly.
have everything
Yeah.
in a similar template so that we can collaborate. I really started to step away from those applications that were hogging the results or the logs or whatever
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
We need a break out of that.
Yeah.
So, amigo, to be respectful of your time, because I know you're a busy man, where can people find you, reach out, or get in contact if they want to know more about, especially Captain and all
Yeah, I think
the.
that the best one is either Twitter or LinkedIn. So Twitter is Grabner Andy, GRABNERANDI. LinkedIn, Andreas Grabner, my full name. And what else? Captain.sh. So
Pretty much.
KPTN.sh is the website, or you find us on GitHub. For Captain, it's very interesting because for KubeCon, we will be in Detroit,
Uh huh.
and we're currently wrapping up Captain 1.0, and then we're already thinking about the future of Captain 2.0. There's
Oh.
already two working groups going on that we want to extract the Lighthouse service that is doing the evaluation against SLOs as a separate standalone component, because people have been asking for using this as a separate component on its own without the whole control plane. And then the second thing we're doing is we are working on a so-called application lifecycle controller. That means we want to solve the problem in Kubernetes that there's no lifecycle management of deployments.
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually building, there's already the first prototype is out there, but it will be a big discussion at KubeCon around us
Ah.
really understanding applications and deployments and creating pre-deployment, deployment, and post-deployment events where we can then hook in the right tools to do pre-deployment and post-deployment actions. And so we want to shift it again a little bit and focus on what we've learned over the last years with Captain, what people really want to do. So stay tuned. Captain 2.0 is a big thing. Or
Wow.
let's say the way forward with Captain.
Go and take a look. I know that they keep posting information, news, and even video content. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah,
your face elsewhere
yeah, 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 yeah.
lately. Stay tuned. Look out for the amigo Andy Grabner. And I will let you go now. Thank you very much for coming up with us
Yeah,
and to
thank
staying
you.
here. It has been a pleasure. I
Thank
know
you.
it's
And we
we're
can touch
here with the
it.
microphones.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
yeah,
touch
yeah.
each other, like not that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, take care, everyone. Wait for the next stream. Whoever shows up, we will start it up in a moment. Stay tuned, stay ready, and vielen Dank, amigo.
Dankeschön. Muchas gracias.
Adios.